Did you know that a little struggle is one of the best ways to help kids grow? There are things that we can allow children to do and allow them to face and allow them to go through that are manageable things for them that can build emotional and mental strength. Let me just give you a couple of examples of things that you can be allowing your child to go through that can develop some of this resilience, but why that struggle is one of the best ways to help kids grow. I'm going to talk a little bit later about some actionable ways that you can really implement techniques to build resilience for kids. But right now, let me tell you some of the science of resilience. For instance, if a child is learning a new skill, which is something that we want kids to do. We want them to be learning. We want adults to be learning. But let's say that they're trying to learn how to ride a bike. Most kids are not going to ride a bike correctly the first time they get on a bike. It's going to take some time. It's going to have some falling over. It's going to have some scrapes. It might even have a little blood. There might be some of those things that happen. And as kids do those things, they're building this tolerance for patience. And it can encourage their persistence. And it also encourages confidence that, oh, that wasn't the end. Just because I fell off the bike doesn't mean that I give up. It means if I want to learn how to ride a bike, I'm going to have to get back on the bike. Think about allowing a child to learn how to tie their shoes, and you're teaching them how to tie their shoes. They are going to mess it up, and there are going to be times when they take off their shoe and slam it on the ground, and there might be times where they just yank the laces as hard as they possibly can because they are feeling all of that frustration. And when you allow them to continue going, even though they are facing all of those challenges, it builds that persistence, and it builds the confidence in them, because if you take it from them, then what you're saying is, oh, you can't do this, I need to do it for you. So when you allow them to do it, then it builds that confidence in them, and that leads to resilience. Or even solving puzzles or problems from schoolwork. If it's difficult and they're having a hard time, that doesn't mean to make it easier, and it doesn't mean to take it away from them. It allowing them to go through that struggle, that developmentally appropriate struggle, builds tolerance and persistence and confidence. Another one is managing disappointment. We in our world today have gone to this everybody gets a trophy mentality, and people ask, Stu, what do you think about everybody getting a trophy? I think it's fine for everybody to get a trophy if the winner also gets a better trophy. There it is. Everybody should get an attaboy, yes, good job, for participating to the level that they can. Everybody should be encouraged to do the things that they enjoy doing, even if they're not great at it. They should be encouraged to do those things. But that does not mean that the winner should get the same thing that the loser got, because in life, there are disappointments. And allowing children to manage those disappointments, like losing a game, teaches emotional regulation. If you don't allow a child to feel disappointment, then they can't learn to tolerate that disappointment. Taking away the disappointment doesn't make them stronger, doesn't make them more resilient. It causes them to not have to face the challenge at all, and then they can't learn to bounce back or keep going. Or kids not getting their way. In my office, I have all sorts of things that kids can play with in a lot of the ways that they want to play with those things. But there are limits that I set to a lot of the items in my room. And there are other things that I don't allow. I don't allow kids to just be on their phones for the entire session or whatever it might be. And sometimes kids will push back at those things. And I will say, for instance, the sand needs to stay in the tray, or Play-Doh needs to be played with on the table, whatever it might be. And they'll say something like, well, I don't want to play with Play-Doh on the table. I want to play with it right here. And I'll say, I understand, but Play-Doh is to be played with on the table. And they'll say, I don't want to. And I'll say, well, if you'd like to play with the Play-Doh, it needs to be on the table. And they might push back more, whatever it might be. But they're learning in my office that you're not always going to get your way. And it's not that I'm going to look at them and say, oh, okay, well, this time you can sit on the floor and grind the Play-Doh into the carpet. No, you are going to have to move to the table. Now, I don't jump on them and I say, no, I said you need to put the Play-Doh on the table. I don't get there. I just calmly continue to say the Play-Doh is for the table, because I understand that them not getting their way is difficult for them. I see a lot of times where parents and teachers and caregivers of all kinds will jump in and just start screaming at a child who is not getting their way, and the child is trying to negotiate, without remembering and realizing that that child is having a tough time trying to learn to tolerate not getting their way. We have to be patient with kids as they are developing this emotional regulation and this coping skill and this resilience for emotional situations. But eventually, kids move to the table with the Play-Doh. And then there's problem solving in relationships. Parents will tell me that there are kids who are always getting in fights with their siblings, or always just arguing with their siblings, and they say that it's driving them wild to have to negotiate all these different things that are going on with the siblings or with friends or peers. If you're a teacher, maybe you've got some kids who just are always arguing, and I'm not talking about physical fights. That's a different situation, but if it's an age-appropriate, developmentally appropriate challenge where they are just arguing with each other, it's healthier if you don't try to fix that thing for them. If they are arguing with their sibling about who gets the remote or who gets to pick the show or whatever it might be, then it's not for you always to step in and say, oh no, you need to do this and you need to do that. Because it doesn't teach kids how to keep going through the tough times in relationships, or how to bounce back from difficult situations in relationships. It can also build some communication and negotiation skills when kids are forced to work out their problems on their own. Now, if you've got one child who is always winning those arguments or always winning that problem-solving negotiation, and you can see that it's starting to affect the other one, then yes, absolutely step in and do what you need to do, but do it as little as possible. Just because kids are arguing and just because kids are loud doesn't mean that it's yours to just step in and fix for them. Allow them to go through that challenge so that they can bounce back after a challenge and they can learn to keep going through the challenge. Those small struggles that are so hard to watch kids go through allow children to practice that frustration tolerance and develop patience. It also shows kids that effort and persistence lead to growth, which fosters a growth mindset. And in our world today, in that world where we've given every kid a trophy and we've awarded everyone 5 stars and an A+, it's gotten too much to be about everyone is supposed to always be perfect at everything. And that's not the case. And as an adult, you know that, and I know that, but we have to foster that growth mindset in kids that it's okay to be here and want to be here and have to give effort to get to where you want to be. That's okay. And that's a brilliant part of living. If you just always have accomplished everything you've wanted to accomplish, then life becomes much less exciting. But if you're working hard and you're staying persistent, then you can be so proud of yourself, and there can be so much confidence that comes from continuing to go even when things are hard and as you're growing along the way. It builds resilience. If you have ever seen your child grow stronger after overcoming a challenge, like this video and share it with other people. And in the comments, leave a comment about a time you saw a child in your life grow stronger after overcoming a challenge.